As guitar players, we often take a bit more of an informal path for our musical education, right? As opposed to a more formal experience like taking music classes, or going to a music school or a conservatory, or even just taking formalized lessons. In those environments, the metronome is used all the time. But in this other way, on this more informal path, guitar players often leave the metronome behind. And in doing so, we generate the risk of creating a gap in our capability to keep time and play in rhythm. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. Today you will learn how to use the metronome. Now maybe you already have a metronome. Maybe you know how to use it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you've used it and you're frustrated with it. Hopefully in this video I'm going to give you some tips that'll clear some of that stuff up for you. Learning guitar on the internet can be a little weird. You never know what you're going to get. Is the content you're looking at something you should be learning? Maybe it's just a rabbit hole. Maybe it's over your head. Maybe it's too easy. Maybe the teaching style is just weird. TrueFire has solved this problem by curating thousands of guitar lessons from hundreds of the world's greatest guitar instructors in one platform. So on TrueFire, you can find lessons that are exactly what you're looking for, both subject and your current capability, as well as they're provided by expert teachers. Use the code CURIOUS30 to get 30% off of any course on TrueFire, and consider their All Access Pass, which gives you access to the entire platform for a full year. I've been teaching music and guitar for a long time, and I've heard guitar players complain about the metronome for years. Let me give you a few examples, see if any of these resonate with you. I have a metronome, but I just don't know how to use it. I don't know what to do. I have a metronome and I've tried it and I can play along, but then after a minute, I've wandered off beat. I don't know what's going on. I don't use a metronome because I just don't have a good sense of rhythm. I don't have a good sense of timing. Learning how to keep time, learning how to play in time and play in rhythm is a skill. It's like riding a bike. It's like making scrambled eggs. It's like playing catch, right? All you have to do is train yourself how to use it. And the tool to train good rhythm is a metronome. That's it. It's just a tool to develop a skill. Here's another one that I hear often. Oh, I don't use a metronome. I use backing tracks because they're way more fun and they're musical. I'm playing music and that's cool. But let me tell you something. That develops a general sense of rhythm. But if you ever want to solve any more technical skill around timing, metronome is the fastest way to do it. Okay, so there's a few things that I hear. I'm going to zoom in right now and teach you how to use the metronome. Okay, the metronome. Here's one. I've got it on my phone. You've got a speed capability here. You can set the speed to whatever you want. And hopefully you've got a little indicator that shows you sort of visually when the beat is coming. This BPM, this 80 BPM here, simply stands for beats per minute. BPM is the way we measure time in music. We're going to be doing our exercises in 4/4 time today. Here's what 4/4 looks like. It's also called common time. And these fours, the stacked 4 over 4, simply means a measure gets 4 beats, and each one of those beats is played as a quarter note, hence the 4 over 4. Okay, there are a lot of other time signatures, 2/4, 3/4. We don't need to get into that because all we're really doing is making sure we can use this thing. So we're just going to use common time in some very simple ideas. When I play this metronome, we're going to be hearing this as quarter notes, and I'm going to get into this in a second. But the way you count this is simply 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are the basics. Let me put down a tab here, and we're going to talk about subdivision. So take a look at this piece of music here. Each one of these measures, and we're in 4/4, that's what that little C means, common time. Each one of these measures has a count of 4. And when we subdivide the beat, it's just like looking at an inch on a ruler. Each one of these inches or measures can be subdivided a few different ways. So as you can see, the first note is all by itself. It's one note in the measure. We count that as a full measure, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the second measure, now there are 2 notes. Each one of them gets half the measure. These are called half notes. This one at the top is called a whole note. When we subdivide again, each one of the notes is now a quarter note. Each one of these gets 1 beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. This lines up perfectly with our metronome. Our metronome is counting in quarter notes. When we subdivide the beat again, now we have eighth notes. There are 8 notes in the measure now, and these are counted as 1 and 2 and. So imagine if I was counting the beat like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. These are my quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I put my hand up here and let my hand sort of bump into it on the upbeats, I'll naturally count these ands, and these are what we call upbeats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So these eighth notes represent downbeats and upbeats. Our last subdivision is 16th notes. Now there are 16 notes to the measure, and each one of these is counted as 1 E and a, 2 E and a. So as you can see here, we've still got the 1, and now we've got those upbeats. The ands are still there, but now we've got the E and the on either side of it. You can count these as 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4 if you want. But classically, the way they're counted in musical notation is 1 E and a. Okay, so let me just play this for you and show you what the exercise looks like. I'm just going to play this G note here on the B string, 8th fret. I'm going to get the beat in my head, tap my foot. This is going to be important as we go. Tapping my foot. Now I'm going to count myself in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Highly recommend going through this a little bit just to gauge where you are with the metronome. If you can do this, that's great. We're going to move on to a little bit more complex exercise. If you can't, it might be a good idea to just stick with this for a couple of days until you can nail it. The best use of the metronome is to train you so that you're so good at keeping time and rhythm that you don't need it anymore, and I'll get to that in a second. So now I have a new exercise. This new exercise is going to be a scale. I'm going to use this G major scale. So this is a little more advanced. There's a lot going on down here. I'm going to put the tabs below. I just want to show you what it sounds like, then we'll get into it a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Nice little advanced exercise. If you can get that going, that's great. Let's just say I'm having a hard time like hanging on, and I'm starting to feel like I'm wandering away from the beat. That might sound something like this. Right? I'm not on beat. I'm wandering around. There's two things you can do right away. First of all, the great news here is you're exposing that you need a little bit more growth in this skill. That's a really good thing because you know what you need to work on. But here are two ways to solve this problem. First of all, there's a lot going on now, right? I've just gone from, playing one note through the subdivisions to now this fancy scale, and maybe I'm having a hard time with the scale itself, maybe there's alternate picking and I'm going across multiple strings, and I also have to pay attention to this and listen and watch the thing. So I'm falling apart, right? Here's the thing. Until you get the exercise down, reduce your cognitive load here by just playing a single note. Just don't even worry about all this other stuff. I'm going to play the same exercise, but I'm only going to look at the notes as values, as time values, and I'm just going to play a single note. Much easier for me to take on. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Much easier for me, right? Another tip is, if you've got an exercise that has multiple subdivisions, set your metronome to the highest subdivision. And this does two things. One, it allows you to have a beat in between the slower notes to help keep you on track. And it also allows you to count in a different way. So here we are at 80. This is quarter notes. I've got eighth notes in this exercise. I'm going to set this to 160 because that's 2 times 8 is 160. There, whoa, 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 whoa. There we go. There it is. So now I'm going to press this button and it's going to sound frantic. It's going to sound like it's going too fast, right? Holy crap. Oh my gosh. Don't worry about it. Count this as your subdivision. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now you can see that even though this feels a lot more frantic, if you use your mind and your brain to set the context that this is now eighth notes, watch what happens to this exercise. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. This helps me really lock in. When you're able to set the metronome and control what it's telling us, in other words, we are now telling the metronome to talk to us in eighth notes. Now I have a little bit of room in between my quarter notes with some sort of pulse that helps me stay on track. So those are two really great tips. Reduce the cognitive load down here if you can't hang on. And if you also can't hang on, but you want to try to get this together, raise your metronome to the highest subdivision of the piece you're trying to play. One last thing I want to stress is get your leg moving the whole time. So remember, our metronome is now at eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. The reason we're doing that, once we can release ourselves from an external source of rhythm and we train ourselves to do this, we will now have an internal source. So now I can play the same thing without the metronome at all. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Hopefully those tips will help you at least get hooked on, right? Show yourself how close you are to a fundamental understanding of how to keep time. Okay, so there's a couple of tips that hopefully solve these two issues. Maybe I've never used the metronome, I don't know what to do, right? Or I use the metronome, but I wander off beat. Getting those subdivisions, just understanding what they are and how they work, that helps you just get started on how to use the metronome at all with some simple one-note drill like we did. And then the idea is if you are wandering, to do those two things, either lower the cognitive load of what you're playing and at the same time double the amount of clicks so that you've got a reference point in between the notes to help keep you on time. And it's not just a note and then this vast expanse of silence where you're supposed to come in at the right time. But that division in between the notes helps to get you the pulse, right? And hopefully you get to transfer that into your legs so that once you do develop that initial skill that you're working on, that first task or whatever task it is you're working on, you can transfer that into your leg and then you won't need the metronome any longer. Okay. I've got a few more exclusive videos on metronome use on my Patreon page. Those are at this link here. If you want to get a hold of those or get a hold of any of the tabs from any of the videos on this entire channel, or you just want to support the channel, that's your best way in. And if you do decide to support the channel, I thank you in advance. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it helpful. Stay curious, and I'll see you next time.